Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and I am delighted to, as far as I know, if the plan all goes to plan, to be closing out the year with a book review. It just feels fitting given how much focus I've given over to book reviews on the channel this year. I'm really pleased with how it's gone. It's nice to be doing it, and we're going to be talking about one of my most anticipated sequels of the year, The Liar's Knot. I'm filming my best books of the year after this, so a large cup of tea was needed. If you haven't heard of this series and you're interested in finding out more about book one, The Mask of Mirrors, this is the Rook and Rose series, I probably should have said that already, go and watch my review video. If you're interested, you should also watch Angela's video because Angela is like the queen of recommending this book. To summarise, go watch the video for book one, watch Angela's video for book one. I think it's spoiler free, it's probably spoiler free. Read book one, watch those videos again because you'll have more thoughts than you finished it. Then, depending on your feelings on whether you want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, you can either watch this video now, and we're not going to spoil anything for you, but obviously we are going to be going into the book, or read the book, then watch this video. Basically do what you want. I'm not your mum. Disclaimers before we start, I did receive a free review copy of both of these books. I think I had a digital copy of The Mask of Mirrors. These two copies I purchased for myself, but I do have a duplicate of The Liar's Knot. I haven't worked out what I'm going to do with it yet. I talked about spoilers. I talked about the fact that they were review copies. I talked about book one. I think that's all the disclaimers I need to give. Storygraph should have some content warnings because I don't have a good memory for them. It's not my skill set. The Rook and Rose is an adult fantasy series publishing from Orbit. The Mask of Mirrors came out early in 2021. This book came out now, December the 7th, I want to say, maybe the 13th. I think it was the 7th. Doesn't matter, it's out now. You can read them both. And I don't actually think it's going to be that long of a wait until the third one, but Angela probably has some more information on that one. M.A. Carrick is actually the name for the author duo Marie Brennan and we think Alice Helms. We're not 100% certain. I've still not read any of Alice Helms' work, but I love Marie Brennan with all of my heart. I've read heaps and heaps of their stuff, so I hugely recommend them. A lot of people know this is an author duo. It's not a big secret. That's who this is. I'm going to read you the blurb for book two, so if you really don't want any spoilers for the end of book one, bog off. In Nadezra, peace is a tenuous thing. A corrupt house in Destor has been destroyed, but darkness still weaves through the city's filthy alleys and jewel-bright gardens, visible to those who know where to look. Vargo, Grey and Wren all know. Caught in a knot of secrets and lies, they struggle to decide whom to trust and whom to turn from. A precarious position, even for a ruthless criminal, a notorious vigilante, and a brilliant con artist. Because the power they are fighting is more ancient than they can fathom, and they have yet to discover how deeply rooted its poison is. In the end, it will take more than wits and knives to cut their city free. A dazzling dark fantasy adventure. I would agree. So I did a reread of The Mask of Mirrors before I went into this. That is definitely how I recommend doing this, particularly if you are a Judith-brained person who has struggles with names and alliances, especially family names, and you know you're going to need the refresher. There is a recap section at the start of The Liar's Knot, so if you're someone who doesn't have the time or you just don't fancy it, this will give you enough of a reminder, and I think that the story is contained enough that you could read this cold. Yes, that's the word I want to. But if you can do a reread, I would really recommend it. It's a much better time. And also, it's really fun to reread book one, knowing what happens in book one. It's a great time. But one of the things that really struck me on this reread is how wonderfully convoluted the magic system is in this series. And by magic system, I actually mean systems. There's heaps of different ways you can do magic in this series. We have kind of tarot card magic, which according to Angela, they are crowdfunding, and I will absolutely be backing that. Give them to me now. There is Numinatra, which is kind of like drawings is how I would describe it, and then there's other vague magical things happening. There's kind of oath magic involved, which is something I'm very close to my heart, and my theory, unconfirmed, is that this is all interlinked in some way, and I'm excited to see how those different systems coincide in later books in the series. But I really enjoyed how you get to dabble in all these sorts of different things. It's very much a system where there are hard rules behind it. It doesn't spell out for you how you could do them at home. You know how some magic books you leave it and you're like, I could definitely be a wizard in this system. Not so much for this, but there is a sense of these hard rules underpinning everything. And what's fun with that is that you then get to play with breaking those rules, or messing around with them is probably the safest way to say it. Yeah, it's a great magic system. One of the biggest things that made me like this book even more than book one, not necessarily overall, but in one of these ways, was that this book, they've really leaned into the banter and the flirting and the general, like, it felt a much more humorous book than book one did. And that's not to say that book one is devoid of all humour, but the banter is just glorious. The flirting is wonderful. I was at the edge of my seat. If romance or that kind of flirty will they, won't they isn't your thing, you might like this less. For me personally, I was like, yes, I'm here for this. Give me it. I want more of this flirting. And I liked that this book felt, even though there's still very dark things going on, it felt much more fun. One of the things I was worried about, and one of the things that I was thinking, like, how on earth are they going to pull this off in a second book, is that book one reveals a lot of secrets. And I was like, is this going to be fun? Is this going to be entertaining? Or is there going to be tension if I already know who everyone is and what everyone's doing? But actually, there's still a heck of a lot of mysteries to reveal. That's what I discovered. Oh boy, lots and lots of mysteries. But also, I think that M.A. Carrick really pulls together this idea of there are so many different identities going around, and so many people know some of those identities, and some people don't know any of those identities. It's really well written from that perspective, and as somebody who really likes to be an omnipotent reader who knows everything and can laugh at the silly, silly characters who only have certain pieces of information, aren't they being foolish, haha, puny mortals, I found that very satisfying. So if anything, I think that the tension as a reader is almost higher, because you know who people are, and you get stressed when they're doing things and you're like, no, that person already knows. No, yeah, that's the very well-spoken way of explaining that I've come up with. I mentioned already it's very rereadable. That's something I personally look for in a series. It's really good fun to go back and read it again. I'd really like to reread The Letters Not again already, because I'm sure there's stuff I could pick up on that I didn't before. One thing I will mention of this as a series as a whole is they're quite slow-paced. They're very long chapters. So if you're someone who likes to break up your reading, I would suggest breaking it up by the changes in perspective rather than the actual chapters, especially if you're someone who only has kind of 5 minutes at a time to read like I do. I think I would have felt like this was faster paced if I'd given that as a mental break for myself rather than going like, oh, it's the end of a chapter. But your mileage may vary. Overall, they are very slow paced books. I wouldn't go into them if you're feeling particularly slumpy. I would maybe be my suggestion. Or if you want to go into them and go all in. Don't try and read them alongside heaps of other things, which is what I did this time and I regretted it. Just like give yourself a day or maybe 2 days. I don't know what your reading speed is. Just enjoy it. Really savour this world. I think they're really good to just dive right into and fully immerse yourself. My con just for this book specifically, but kind of also for Mask of Mirrors, and this has been my con the whole time, and I think it's just something I'm going to have to learn to live with. My favourite character by a long shot is Tess, Ren's sister. She's a seamstress. I just want her to be happy. I love her. I adore her whole character, and there is not enough of her in these books, and I get why, but I would also really love more Tess. Like, if you could give me a series of novellas that are just Tess's perspective on everything, I adore her. I'd quite like to make a ball gown in 2022 as one of my sewing projects, and this may be the hook on which I hang making that ball gown. Because I just want to live my Tess fantasies. Some comparisons, some other things you might want to read or consume, because in this case I have a piece of media and I cannot get this piece of media out of my head. Has anyone seen Miraculous Ladybug? It is a arguably for children, but adults can enjoy it too. It's that kind of vibe, probably more for children, TV series. And it has a lot of cases of, I don't even know if it's mistaken identity, but just some people know who people are and some people don't. And there's a lot of love triangles going on between less than 3 people, and it's very entertaining. And that was some of the vibes that this book gave me. But in terms of actual serious fantasy recommendations, I was thinking about, I haven't talked about it, and I can't remember what the series is called, but the book's by Robin Lefebvre's, unsure, that have similar kind of like ball gowns and espionage and such. They are very good fun. They're very, I think I found them very silly fun. There's some darker moments to them. I'm not suggesting they're utterly lighthearted, but in terms of like, oh no, I am stuck in this mistaken identity with this rather handsome man, whatever am I to do? Oh no. The other thing, bizarrely, I wondered about Dominion of the Fallen, that series by Elliot de Bodard, simply because I feel like the structure of there being a lot of noble houses, they aren't noble houses in terms of Dominion of the Fallen, they're more houses of necessity, they're magical, but they hold a lot of power, and that power structure really rang bells for me. That's a very different series in terms of tone, post-apocalyptic magical war Paris, but also there are some similarities, like especially the idea of this like grand architecture and stuff. I really felt that rang true for this, and the idea of the land having history to it and that being important. Overall, did this hit the spot in exactly the same way as book one? Not necessarily, but I still had an exceptionally good time. This is definitely on my best books of 2021 list, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks for you guys. I think book one did more for me, but I think it's because book two is the middle, and I think it's going to be similar to Jade War, where we have these 3 books and the second book is really going to fit as a piece of a trilogy. I think this is a trilogy. I'm going to guess that it is. Really, really enjoyed it. Really liked the humour. will be really excited to see where everything goes in book 3. Have you read this? Are you planning to? Is this a series that you would like to pick up? Is this a series that you are like, no, this is definitely not for me? If so, why? Let me know down in the comments. You can also recommend me other books with seamstresses in. I have read Spin the Dawn, but any other books that have dramatic ball gown scenes, please let me know. I would like to read all of them next year. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord. Happy New Year. I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. And that's not to say that book 1 is devoid. Blah, blah, blah.